Everybody ready? Yes. We're starting on time. We're committed. Starting on time. So everybody, we're going to give you a preview of one of the solutions. Everybody go ahead and sit up, please. As deep as you can. Take a big deep breath. Blow it out. And another one. Try and go about 10. So one of the things is we're talking about air pollution and things in your lungs. One of those things is that when you breathe, most people breathe very, very shallow. In fact, the average person only breathes about 12 to 14 times a minute, and technically, when you're completely resting, you should only breathe about 6 times a minute. It's about double that, and so it's a trained response. And so one of the things you can do is you take deeper breaths, is you turn over the oxygen in your lungs that normally would just sit there. It sits in the bottom portion of your lungs. It helps you to recharge or to repair. So I will tell you that we talked about the causes and solutions to toxicity, because I think toxicity is one of those things that we probably skip over most often, or we only talk about the basic things. So we're going to go into a lot more depth. I'll tell you, toxicity is also, besides food, toxicity is probably the thing that I hear most often. Well, I think we're doing pretty good. Have you ever heard that? We took 100 definitions of pretty good. I can guarantee you they'd all be different. So just know that it's not to say that every person needs to make every change to be alive or to be healthy or whatever, but we are going to go over some, what I would consider a few things that might be harsh truths for some people about what things put toxicity in their body that they may put a denial on or like to look the other way for that thing specifically. So just take it all in. See what you want to change. For most people, especially for many of you that have come to a lot of these things before, really, I personally think the best remedy or the best thing to do is to pick 2 or 3 things to try and change, not to maybe change 20 things, because you're much more likely to see success if you change a couple of things and really stick to those things, just like changing food, just like anything that can make us better or healthier. But of course, I forgot. I even had the visual aid. I had a book that I was going to bring in, and it's in my car. But every time we do one of these talks, not only do we do quite a bit of research, we go through this PowerPoint, but every single time we read a book specifically on the topic to make sure that we have the newest information or the most fresh information. And so the book that we read this time was all on household toxicity, so hidden areas. So there's 3 slides in here that are specific, that are just a bunch of statements that the author made kind of kicking it off, that I think was kind of interesting, because it really makes you think a little bit. But lifestyle-wise, I know you probably can see that thing, but how many people ever have made a bad choice because they were busy, right? Because they were flying from one place to the next. Of anything, when we have people doing the advanced eating plan, when they're trying to lose weight or eat healthier, most common reason somebody stops or takes a break is busyness. Whether it's a busy day or a travel weekend or something, and it throws them off. And so when you think about those lifestyle accumulations, there's a lot of things that go into lifestyle. It affects how you eat. It affects your stress level, which affects your hormones. When your hormones are affected, it can affect literally every organ in your body. Positionally, for instance, for people who work lots of hours, if you sit over a computer 10, 12 hours a day, eventually you're going to get that. If you didn't get adjusted, you'd get that adaptive rounding or hump, or which everybody in this room knows pinches nerves in your neck, affects your heart, affects your lungs, affects your health. So lifestyle-wise, we're really looking at what can we do to be better, because it is true also that it can be perfect. In fact, the other thing I get is a lot of that person on the right. How do I get more energy? And I will tell you, how do we get more energy? Often the way you get more energy is to put less strain on your body. So lower stresses. And stresses, when you break it down very simply, stresses, you can talk about thoughts, like mental stress. How many people have ever just been so stressed because of a family event or an emergency or something where it wears on their body? They might even get sick. They might feel nauseous. They might not be able to sleep. Chemical stress would be what you put in your body or what you breathe in. You hear about spring cleaning. How many people have, just because they've always been told to do it, open their house up when it finally gets warm enough? One of those things they've shown over and over, that indoor air pollution is much worse than outdoor air pollution in pretty much every major area, especially in our country. Now, In some other countries like China, that might not be the case, you know, but in our country, indoor pollution typically is worse than outdoor. So here's some of those things. I saw this on a movie, so I stuck it on here since I was working on it today. But it was talking about harsh truths. I mean, truth. So it says truth is like poetry, but a lot of people hate poetry. You know, they don't even want to hear it. They don't want to think about it. They might know it's good or it's art or whatever, but they don't want to spend the time on it. And so to kind of go through a few of these to get started, these are more to think about. But you pay for convenience. A lot of times I'll have somebody say, you know, it's too expensive to eat healthy, or McDonald's was cheaper, or, you know, any of those things. But in reality, you pay for convenience in a different way, not necessarily in price, but in what it does to your body. So we pay for convenience when somebody gets, for instance, wrinkle-free clothing that's sprayed with chemicals so it doesn't wrinkle. Right? Your body actually absorbs a little bit of that. Now, whether it's a huge deal or a small deal, that's up to you, but the reality is to have wrinkle-free clothing or some of those synthetic chemicals that are sprayed on there, that's a convenience that you actually pay for. Certain things like deodorant. How many people have tried to find a natural deodorant and had to go through 6 different kinds before they found one that works? You know, the one I'm wearing right now, I'll tell you, it's the best I've ever found, but if I pick my arm up, it sticks. You know, it's not my favorite. So it's not, you know, because it doesn't have propylene glycol. It doesn't have a chemical in it that makes it absorb more. For those of you that have ever tried coconut oil as a lotion instead of lotion, for many women, it's not that they don't like coconut oil, but the thing about coconut oil is it's greasy. So why is lotion not greasy? Almost all of them have alcohol. So you put lotion on to make your skin more moist, and what's alcohol do? It dries it. So why do you reapply it in an hour? It's a pretty good system for that company, but it's for convenience. Sunscreen, the first sunscreen that was really commercially developed had zinc oxide in it, which is the natural sunscreen that you should use. But the problem with zinc oxide sunscreen, doesn't absorb very well, right? If you see somebody wearing zinc oxide sunscreen, they usually have kind of a white tint, where if you use banana boat, it absorbs because it's the difference in, you know, chemicals. So the reality is you pay for convenience one way or another. It's just thinking about how you're paying for that convenience. So these are all statements. I'm just going to openly say I didn't write these statements. I copied them verbatim, so I can blame the author. So the second thing I put in there is that new car smell is so dangerous it ought to deploy an airbag. When you think about new car, how many people know that new car smell? Or when you get a new mattress, most mattresses now, they're sprayed with flame retardant so that it wouldn't light on fire if you, the flame retardant is very toxic. So if you don't have a plastic sheet open, it actually can absorb into your sheets or absorb into your body while you're sleeping. For children, you know, we talk about kids, they need all these hormones as they grow. Children's pajamas, you actually specifically have to buy them without flame retardant. So if you get a cotton PJ for your 1-year-old, you have to specifically look for ones that aren't sprayed or covered in chemicals. So the risk of, you know, the thing is the risk of, what you have to weigh out is the risk of the child running into an open flame or lighting on fire, which certainly would be very devastating or traumatic, or how many kids, which 100% of kids absorb chemicals into their system from the time they're born, because for that one small thing, we affect everybody. It's true for food, right? So for people who, for dairy, the reason dairy is pasteurized is because those few people that got sick from the bacteria, when dairy is supposed to be full of healthy, good bacteria, it's supposed to be full of probiotics, but if you get probiotics, for instance, in yogurt, it's added back in because it's been pasteurized. Currently, the only thing you can buy in the store that's still raw the way dairy was supposed to be consumed is cheese. You can get raw cheese, but you can't get raw yogurt, you can't get raw milk. So when you look at it that way, you start to realize there's a lot of stuff to look at. You know, there's a lot of stuff to look at. The next statement here, which I thought was, you know, those silver fillings in your mouth could one day prevent you from recognizing your own reflection. How many people have amalgam, mercury fillings? Right, so you think about that. They've shown that your body temperature enough will slowly, that mercury does become, turns into gas, whatever word I'm looking for, it turns into gas, and it does small amounts of it absorb into your bloodstream. Another thing to consider, if that's mercury, well, another thing is mercury is the flu shot, right? So flu shots already been proven since the 70s, because they had to look back by the time people were older. 5 flu shots increase your risk of Alzheimer's by 1,000%. How many people still get flu shots? Interestingly enough, 5 flu shots in a row, if there was a real pandemic, if there was something that could kill people, like they always say the flu shot can do, if you've gotten 5 flu shots in a row, you're more likely to catch a dangerous flu than somebody who's at 0. That was published in the Rockford newspaper last year. So it's a medical research study. Yet how many times is it pushed? Right? So you think about mercury. There are a couple things you can do when you talk about teeth. One, you can get resin fillings, which are plastic, which aren't perfect, but they're better than the metal. A root canal versus an implant's shown to be less toxic to your body. So there are certain things you can do. But of course, the more we take care of our body from start to finish, the better off we are. So certainly working on our kids, grandkids, and hopefully not even have to make that decision. And so, you really want to consider that when you talk about metal. Metal, whether it's mercury or aluminum, both can cross your blood-brain barrier. So even small amounts. You probably know the chiropractic first group, we seem to be pretty fertile. We're averaging 3 kids a year right now in staff. So the last few years, well, think about, they tell pregnant women not to eat fish. Not to eat fish in their first trimester because it can be harmful to a baby, right? The average amount of mercury in fish is 0.04 micrograms. The average amount of mercury in a flu shot is 25 micrograms. And yet they'll give so consider what's the recommendation. Is it really safety or is it profit driven? Because think about that. You just look at it and go, well, how can you do that? Even in one last, without giving too many so the American Medical Association has changed the recommendation for most women's for mammograms to every 2 to 3 years, which is current with most first world countries. Do you know how many Rockford hospitals have changed their recommendation or have changed how often they give mammograms? None. 0 out of 3. They all still give them yearly if the person shows up. But the American Medical Association recommendation, so why? Insurance pays for it. It's free for most people. So, all right, next thing. If you wouldn't drink it, you shouldn't put it on your skin. So, talk about lotion versus coconut oil. That's a perfect example. For people that feel like they need lotion, coconut oil is a much better alternative. It's great for your body. Even amazingly, it's a natural SPF 4. I don't know why, but still even for people that go out in the sun, SPF 4, antiviral. It's good for your skin. It has all these benefits. It's a natural, healthy, saturated fat. And otherwise, for sun, we talked about zinc oxide sunscreen. So you just look for that. They do carry it in stores now. You used to have to order it. If you went to Amazon on your phone right now and typed in zinc oxide sunscreen, you could get all different kinds. You can get it shipped right to you. But putting it on your skin, that also goes for makeup. One thing I will say without picking on women is that if a husband and wife does the weight loss challenge, I'll tell you, again, they're always mad at their husband because he loses weight faster. I don't know how many people, that's not true for everybody, that's kind of a blanket statement, but think about this for women, and we're talking about toxicity today. Men versus women, most women put more toxins on or in their body than men do. They put more makeup on, they put more things on their skin for longer periods of time. Also, women tend to take more prescriptions. And you might not think of it this way, but women, even from when they're early, might take birth control, which is a prescription. It's a hormone which throws off your body. So you consider this as build-up effect. Toxicity, the more toxins you put in your body, the more is your body is unable to detox it, or you burn up the glutathione, your liver's natural antioxidant. What your body does is store that toxicity in your body fat. So a lot of times it's hard. It's not saying all women have trouble with this, but a lot of times it's harder for women because over the years they put more toxicity in or through their body. Makeup, if you're going to change your makeup, think about the makeup that smears on that's chemical-based is chemical-based, where makeup that's mineral-based is mineral-based. So mineral-based makeups are much better for women for makeup, for instance. That's another thing to consider. Second saying, so we're trying to break this up so it's not just down here for a second. But we live too short and die too long. If you look up on the World Health Organization's website, they actually say that Americans have the most years of potential life lost of any country in the world. So if you were created to live to 100, you on average take 20 years off your life by living in America, the most technologically advanced country in the world. If you're supposed to live to 80, 60 and vice versa. And also they say the average person spends 20 years of their life sick before they actually pass away. The average person does. So sick on multiple drugs, having major issues. Not this slow thing like your heart's slowly building plaque and you're going to have a heart attack at 100, but actually on average by age 60, the average American is on 6 drugs. Most of them have pain and other issues, and so the World Health Organization ranks this as the worst in the world for that. So consider that too, because living is, the more you can do, the more energetic you are, the less pain you have, all that kind of stuff, the least drugs you're on, that's really living. So that was where that quote came from. So scented laundry detergent, dry cleaning. You've probably heard that before, but you might have noticed if you've been on a shop with a doc trip, or if you just visualize the grocery store, how many white or clear bottles do you see when you're in the, you see a ton of them now, right? But that didn't used to be the case. Why? Because there's so much toxicity now that people are developing more and more allergens to the dyes, the scents, and so that chemical scent, that fresh mountain air or whatever, whatever that is, that's a chemical, and while only a small amount of it does store on your clothes, it does store on your clothes and you absorb it. Dryer sheets are even worse because you're actually putting the chemical on right before you take it out. So for people that use the dryer sheets for static, again, you're putting a chemical on your clothing before you put it on, and you absorb roughly 25% of whatever chemicals your body comes in contact with. So dryer balls versus dryer sheets are another good change or another good alternative. Dry cleaning. Dry cleaning itself, how many people, I wonder how many people know that dry cleaning is not dry? It's sprayed, it's sprayed with chemicals. It's a wet chemical, but it's just not water. So it's sprayed with these chemicals, and the chemicals stay. In fact, they do slowly evaporate out of your clothing, but they've shown that if you take your dry cleaning and put it in your closet and then pull the plastic off, those chemicals that are on the dry cleaning, you can still swipe residues off your floor for 2 weeks from your dry cleaning. So when you if you've ever gone like to an indoor gun range or something, they tell you to clean your feet off because you're going to get the lead on the soles of your shoes, and then your kids can get that in their hands or feet and they can absorb it. So you're supposed to walk on all this sticky tape, and you're supposed to do all this stuff to get the lead off your shoes so that you don't track it home and then you don't silently put your kids in contact with it. Well, similarly, that dry cleaning, when you do that, so if you have dry cleaning done, it's recommended that you take the plastic off in the garage or outside and actually leave it out in your garage and let it air out before you bring it in your house. But you should never actually bring your dry cleaning in with plastic still on it. Again, it's an easy thing. It doesn't affect you. It just takes that time to do it because you do come in contact. And if you keep the plastic, it takes about 4 days for most of those chemicals to evaporate out of it. So if you have dry cleaning done, you should have it done early, and that way you're not going to put it on your skin if you pick it up the same day and then put it on. Another thing to consider, it says, we poison our home just to kill a fly. So for instance, for those of you that have had your home sprayed with pest control, you notice that they don't come in the home anymore. Typically, they don't spray the Terminex guy or whoever service you use. They don't spray the chemical inside anymore because they showed just how hard that was on people, because those chemicals were being inhaled, they were coming in contact with your skin, they're being absorbed. So they mostly only spray them around your house now versus inside. But when you spray chemicals to kill, let's say, bugs, if you sprayed, let's say you're getting ants in your house, some easy things you can use for ants are you can use essential oils, you can use dish soap, you can use a lot of things that are a lot safer versus spraying, let's say, Raid, which you're going to inhale. It's going to stay in your house unless you air your house out. But also air fresheners. Okay, so how many people have Glade air fresheners? And they're not. Remember, that's all synthetic. So those chemicals affect your body's hormones. They affect cancer risk. They affect hormones for reproductive hormones. They affect it. So if you have that time-released air freshener, you're absorbing toxicity in your body with not a whole lot of benefit. That's also true of cologne and perfume. So previously, cologne and perfume came from, again, from essential oils from different vegetables or herbs, or even think of like potpourri, right? Potpourri smells and it's actually natural, versus these chemical ones. Even something like cologne or perfume, which you are only spraying on your clothes typically, but putting on your skin, you're absorbing a synthetic chemical in your body. And this is certainly not an essential oil seminar by any means, but I'll tell you what, that was a mistake I made for a lot of years, and recently I've just switched to a blend of a couple of oils that are natural, that are pure, that are whatever. If you're interested in that kind of stuff, I will tell you, Dr. Kyle is going to do an essential oil basics for newbies the end of this next month. So what is it, the 26th or 8th?
7th.
20, I was close. 27th of next month of April. So if you're interested in just learning the basics of, let's say, how to use peppermint for your sinuses or lavender to help you sleep a little bit, or for cologne or aftershave or something like that, he's going to go over those basic things. Next thing to talk about are plastics. So plastics have saved a lot of things. They have a lot of great benefits. Plastic combined with heat can leach chemicals into your food, especially. So consider that, so microwaving in plastic, storing in plastic, and then it depends on the type of plastic. If you really want to get into plastics, you should just type in on Google, save plastics, and you can read about the different types. But for instance, when you certain substances are better at pulling things out too. So water in plastic, it takes somewhere a little bit over 100 degrees to start pulling the plastic out of water. But think about, let's say, a TV dinner. So if you take a TV dinner that's frozen and then you heat it in the microwave or the oven, it might be organic broccoli, but it's organic broccoli that now has some oil and petroleum products absorbed into it. So when you cook, depending on what you cook with, it can affect what you're having. So, which brings up a good point as far as heat. I get a lot of people ask me, how should I cook or heat my food? Heat is typically, raw has the largest amount of overall nutrition. The more you heat it, the more you're going to lose. And there's many foods that you need to cook. So when you think about this, short amounts of time with steam is going to be the least harmful. You can even, when you talk about meat, you can boil meat, it'll have no carcinogens on it. So like for instance, grilling versus boiling, if you're really, really concerned, you can boil meat and that has it cooks the meat without having any damage to the actual. Now I know it doesn't taste as good, I understand all this kind of stuff. This is all for your base knowledge. But then when you can go from the oven, which is going to be a slower heating process, to a direct heat on your stove, so going from low heat to high heat. And lastly, your microwave. If you have a microwave cooks the fastest by heating the water molecules in the food. Cooks it the fastest, but it also loses the highest percentage of overall nutrition. So it's something to be aware of, because if you're trying to eat all this healthy food, the faster and higher temperature you cook it, the more you actually lose out of the food. So something to keep in mind. The last thing about microwaves, dishwashers, that kind of stuff, there is an actual radius where it emits either radiation or high-intensity electricity, which can be harmful to your body. You might even remember when they tell women not to stand in front of a microwave because of what it emits. Depending on where you're standing, the book says it's not a good idea to watch the popcorn pop. To put your face right next to the microwave for 5 minutes. It's not a good idea. Next thing, talking about toxicity, we really don't know the long-term consequences of vaccination. Right? So, I know some of you have heard this before, but I'll tell you, I'm 30, so I'm 30, and a child that's vaccinated today will get more than 3 times the amount of vaccines that I got when I was a child. And that was almost 3 times. If anybody here that's 60 or older, what I got was more than 3 times what you got. So when you talk about cumulative effect, think about this. I read an article the other day. I thought it was interesting. It was like, do you think anybody likes being countercultural? Like talking about the negatives of, wouldn't it be nice if they just had all good benefits and we could just all be on the same team and support it and everybody? I would much prefer that, realistically. It'd be great. But when they look at it, they know, for instance, the flu shot and mercury, but almost every vaccine has to have mercury or aluminum in it. Every single one. It's what makes it work. The reason why green vaccines don't exist is that is what makes it work. So the mercury-free flu shot really didn't work very well. That's why they went back to putting mercury in it, unless you ask for the one that's mercury-free. Because it doesn't take. The metal is what wakes your nerve system up. which your nerve system controls your immune system. Therefore, the metal, the toxicity, is what allows it to grab the smaller dose of the disease that you're trying to prevent to make your body immune to it. The other thing to consider is unless any of you are on the vaccine booster schedule, almost all of the people in this room are unvaccinated, technically, because almost every vaccine has a 5 to 10 year lifespan. 5 to 10 years. So if you went and got, and you can do this, you can go get, it's called a blood titer. You can do it for your animals, you can do it for people. If you get a blood titer and you actually see how many things you're immune to, most of the people in this room aren't going to be immune to measles, mumps, rubella, hepatitis. They're not going to be immune to it. That's why when you go to a foreign country, how come you have to redo all your vaccines? They don't last. They don't last. That's one of the biggest issues with them. So then if you do stay on the schedule, not only do you get 84 doses as a child, but now you have to get 10, 20, 30 doses every 10 years. So what's the cumulative effect of that? So which one's going to be better for you? That's the debate. Again, that's what you have to personally decide. But for those of you with kids, you're getting 3 times more, and there's never been a long-term study, which is interesting because there's certainly been the opportunity to, but there's never been a long-term study. So anybody, unless you can link the condition that you have within a year or two, you can't say that this was caused by a vaccine side effect or vaccine damage, or which there's all sorts of links to digestive problems, to many, many, many issues. So we already talked about this one, but the next slide says indoor air pollution is the asbestos of tomorrow. You know, it certainly, does anybody think that when they were putting asbestos in buildings, they thought it was bad for you? Obviously not, they wouldn't have done it, right? So it came out later. Well, indoor air pollution, why is it so much worse now? It's because of all those things that we just listed. The sprays, the not air purifiers, but the scents, the hairsprays, the stuff that we put through our body or that we put up into the air, those are the things that affect it. The last one here, this is just kind of a statement, but it says, technological advancements made for profit will always outpace research designed for safety. So without giving too many examples of this, and I've said this at seminars before, but if anybody was going to guess what's the highest margin, highest profit that CVS or Walgreens has? Flu shot. Flu shot. They make more money on the flu shot than anything that they have. Highest profit. And what is the biggest sign you see when you walk in there for 6 months? And now it's a cyclical thing, because once the flu shot's over, you get your pneumonia shot, followed by your shingles shot, so you can seasonally be marketed to year-round, and it's the highest profit margin. So think about that before when you're getting the shot. Is it for your safety, or is it because of the margin on that? And think about this. This is the last slide for this. This is just the beginning. We are not touching the surface really of all the things that you could potentially talk about being poisonous. Fluoride. Fluoride is something that absorbs into the pores of your teeth that makes the outside of your teeth stronger. That's why fluoride is recommended. If you have sensitive teeth, fluoride fills the holes and actually dulls the nerve endings, so it doesn't make your teeth as painful if you have sensitive teeth. So Sensodyne toothpaste is high fluoride toothpaste because that fluoride absorbs into the holes in your teeth. That's what it numbs it. It treats it like a toxin. The bad part about fluoride is that fluoride kills the good bacteria in your digestive tract. So you're trading one thing for another. So somebody said to me, my dentist told me to use fluoride toothpaste for my sensitive teeth. How come it's on the toxic table? And the analogy I use, well, if you have severely high blood pressure, you might take high blood pressure medicine, but does that mean it's not a toxic thing? Does that mean it's not hard on your kidneys, hard on your, right? So everybody in this room knows that you would prefer to take no drug and have your blood pressure be low. So in some cases you might need certain things for a period of time, but it doesn't mean it doesn't have a side effect. It doesn't mean, and so the side effect of fluoride is it kills the bacteria in your stomach, which affects nutrient absorption, affects how healthy you are, and the trade-off is for harder teeth. Acetaminophen is probably the most toxic thing you have in your bathroom. I hope a lot of people here don't have any Tylenol, aspirin, ibuprofen, or the need for it. But acetaminophen, Tylenol, is, compared to any of the other chemicals even that sit in somebody's bathroom, is the hardest one on your body. It's the most toxic. So, because most people keep a little bottle of acetaminophen or ibuprofen or something for pain relievers. Actually NSAIDs, but acetaminophen is not an NSAID, have the highest side effect rate of any major drug class, 16.5%. So when you consume them, whether you notice it or not, on average they have the highest side effect rate. and get there, you could get a bottle of Tylenol for $5, or I don't know what they cost, but I'm assuming it's not very much, you know. And so consider that really is, it's not a cheap alternative. You talk about we pay for convenience. How much easier is it to pop a pill in the morning and not have pain and go about your day? But what you're paying for with your body. The cold cut trio at Subway is made from turkey. Now think about the cold cut trio: ham, salami, and what's the third one? Bologna. Ham, salami, and bologna. If you look at the ingredient list, it's all turkey that's dyed and food flavoring to taste like those things. So now, when you consume that, how healthy is that for somebody? Right? And Subway's got the current commercial. It's probably my favorite commercial. I think it's true, except for the solution is, it said the commercial is this guy lighting his car on fire, dumping gas in it, hitting it with a baseball bat. It says, if you treated your body like you treated your car, you'd have to walk everywhere. That's what the commercial says. You know, because people put so much bad food, chemicals, whatever. But the answer is Subway. I'm not sure the answer is Subway. You know, but that's their premise. That's their commercial. So, you know, think about that. You think you're eating ham, salami, and bologna, and you're eating turkey-flavored ham, salami, and bologna. All three are turkey, completely turkey-based. Amino sweet. How many people have heard of amino sweet before? It's aspartame. So when aspartame got all the research, what's that? Used to be called NutraSweet. So when aspartame was found to be a very toxic chemical, started to be pulled out of soda pop and you know, these the colored packets, basically, you can think of it, they renamed it. They renamed it so you won't notice it if you're a label reader, right? So instead of taking it off the market, the company renamed it Amino Sweet, and so think about that. They know it's damaging, so they rename it so that you'll keep buying the product. So last thing to say here, moderation, not abstinence, is usually the solution to excess. And so it's not that you're going to be perfect all the time, but trying to find some of these things to be better in, or even maybe be aware of, so you make some of the changes. I'll tell you, I have a minimal issue with Thanksgiving and Christmas, with like the cakes and the sweets and that sort of thing. I have an emotional connection to jelly beans, which makes Easter my hardest holiday, right? So especially Jelly Bellies, those are my favorite. So we all understand this. It's not saying that, but you know, this year I think I had 7 jelly beans instead of the bag that previously was consumed 10 years ago or whatever. You know, so you know, moderation, instead of missing out on it completely, it's a completely different amount of toxicity though, right? A massively different amount of toxicity. So talking about this, I'll tell you, I can't ever cover this topic, and I'm certainly not a psychologist, but a lot of people I hear, besides the busyness, they'll say, you know, that negative self-talk is why I switch. That negative self-talk is why I do whatever. And I'll tell you, whether you like Tony Robbins or don't, I would download his YouTube after how to make an affirmation. It's 5 minutes on YouTube. But I'll tell you, when you have certain things ingrained in your mind, it's pretty important to change the way that you think to be able to change the way that you act to create habits. And so affirmations change negative self-talk. And again, being very transparent, before you see me, any day that you ever come get adjusted, I've done my affirmations in the same spot, in the same drive, every single time I come see you, because I don't think, or Dr. Kyle and Dr. Alex both do the same thing, because we both, and I personally don't think that it's right to come in a bad mood, or come in thinking that, I wouldn't want to be adjusted by somebody who's angry, you know, so I don't think you should either. So we come in, you know, we have a whole ritual of habits because you can't control everything in your life, so we have these certain habits to help with that negative self-talk or those things to try and be better. So we're not going to cover this a whole lot, but I'll tell you, look that up, it's great, and if you can change it, they say try and do it 3 times a day, whatever you want to think about. And his quote that I put up here, people are rewarded in public for what they practice for years in private. That continue to work on that self-talk makes a huge difference. Chronic disease, why is toxicity so important? A combination of toxicity, damaging your body, combined with nutrient deficiencies, subluxations, things that wear on your body, eventually lead to chronic disease. There's no chronic disease that just shows up randomly. Recurrent research shows that about 2 to 5% of diseases are purely genetic. 95 to 98% of diseases have lifestyle factors and they accumulate over time. So which should be empowering, because that means that you have the power to change most of the things that happen to us. We have the power to do that. But we have to act earlier. By the time it shows up, we're in trouble, right? I just had somebody, the last person I saw, the reason why we were almost late was because somebody came in, he was 38 years old, damaged a disc in his back. We know that damaging a disc in your back takes at least 25,000 bad motions, which is more than 10 years. At least 25,000 bad motions. No pain until 2012. Not even really in severe pain at this point, right? But all those 25,000 bad motions severely damaged that disc, right? Well, with food, with toxicity. The thing, why don't kids have toxicity issues as much? When you're born, the way we're built, we have this substance, it's called glutathione, that's what we're going to end with. But glutathione is made by your liver, and it's almost like how much gas do you have in your gas tank. So if kids are running around eating jelly beans with vaccine schedules, whatever, all these different bad foods, macaroni, cheese, these things that they consume that have chemicals in them, food colorings, dyes, whatever, well, they have all this glutathione built up that negates it, that stops it from being damaging to their body. But unless you start putting those good foods in, like, of course, two of the biggest things to make glutathione, broccoli and Brussels sprouts. How many kids like eating broccoli and Brussels sprouts, right? So unless you, as you become an adult, you start putting that good stuff back in, you keep eating the processed foods, the bad stuff, whatever, you burn up all the gas in your gas tank, and that's when people start to have damage from toxicity. It's not right away. It's not to say that kids aren't affected by like ADD from food colorings and some of that kind of stuff, but it's one of the things that it does. So this is why I'll tell you, we're not, supplements is the next big talk, it's at the end of May, but the next time we do the next one's a recipe night, the following one is nutrition, but what we're going to go through is how to read or how to take the right supplements. Because I'll tell you, I get asked that constantly. We'll go through every single supplement that we carry, every single one, so you know what they do, what's in them, all the things that I get asked constantly. We'll also cover anybody that brings any supplements. We'll actually cover those supplements, whether they're good or bad, why they're good or bad, what it does. If it's, somebody said, well, she won't swallow pills so she eats Flintstone vitamins. I've heard that 10 times this month. I don't know why. I've said to every single person, they might as well not eat them, because the amount of tar, food coloring, junk in a Flintstone vitamin is a bigger waste than the synthetic vitamins that are in it. It's not even worth it. Centrum Silver was proven to be worse for you than if you took nothing. That synthetic vitamin. Guess who makes Centrum Silver? AstraZeneca. Drug company makes them in the same lab. So the thing is, they're cheap, they're fillers, they're pointless. So, but what should you take? The basics, you should be taking a whole food multivitamin. Here's why. Even if you eat really, really good, the fact of what we've done to soils, wearing out even healthy foods. For instance, I've heard this about apples. The stat I read this week was about spinach. Spinach is supposed to be high in iron, and it is. But you would have to eat 65 pounds of spinach for the amount of iron you would have gotten in 1 pound of spinach in 1950. So why do you have to take a multivitamin? Because certain nutrients have been depleted out of our soils through even synthetic fertilizers and things, and therefore we miss certain nutrients even when we eat healthy, which is why you have to take a whole food multivitamin. You don't have to, but you're missing out on certain nutrients if you're not. So that's kind of the basic. Even organics. Organics is supposed to be better than that, but it's still not going to be the same because it's still a soil issue. The organic just doesn't have the, pesticides and fungicides and all that stuff. So whole foods, so it's going to be non-GMO, the chemicals, pesticides, but multivitamins. Second thing is if you didn't get outside consistently, especially in the winter, you should be taking vitamin D. I mean, you really need to be taking vitamin D. It's essential. It's shown to prevent 18 different types of cancers, reduce your risk of MS, all this stuff. The other reason why we're talking about it, the vitamin D that we carry also is full of probiotics, which absorb vitamin D better. People ask me all the time, should I be taking calcium? If you eat even kind of healthy, you don't need to take a calcium supplement. In fact, when we talk about toxicity, most calcium supplements, especially the vitamin D calcium chews that most people take, synthetic vitamin D, so it doesn't work very well. Secondly, the calcium is scraped from rocks. Now, there's no calcium, nobody in here eats rocks. And even in the calcium in spinach that might be pulled from the soil, it's put into a usable form. So when you eat the spinach, the calcium that's in there, you absorb it. You don't absorb rock calcium, but what does happen when you eat a whole bunch of calcium is that it stores somewhere, and it stores in your muscles. So it's why it's one of the reasons people get stiff. But the biggest reason I would not take calcium supplements, unless you're taking raw calcium, just like a whole food multivitamin, you have to take raw calcium, is because calcium, one of the spots that it stores is in your arteries. So you're trying to prevent osteoporosis, and you're creating atherosclerosis, or hardening of your arteries, which affects blood pressure, heart disease. The thing that's going to actually, the #1 killer in our country, is affected by somebody trying to be healthier and taking calcium. Now, they used to recommend, even natural providers recommended people take calcium. If you're taking at least 5,000 units of whole food vitamin D, you don't need to take calcium. 5,000 units, eating even moderately healthy, you don't need to take calcium. All right, last slide before we're going to bring Dr. Alex up here. So this is toxicity, and we already covered it. We've covered it a lot of times. When you run out of glutathione, or when you start to have less glutathione, when you put toxins in your body to keep you alive longer, to keep you healthier, your body stores toxins in your body fat. It's why people build up body fat over time often. It's actually, it's supposed to go like this. So you're supposed to gain a little bit of weight. Part of midlife, you're supposed to have a little bit more body fat, but as you get older, you're actually supposed to lose weight. You're supposed to get thinner. That's the natural lifestyle of the human body, but it's not near as common in our country. One of the big reasons is that people, as they take more drugs, as they continue to consume more processed foods, chemicals, pollution, instead of going back down, they stay and they retain, and so they keep going up, and so they go right across this spectrum. Does that make sense to everybody? So detoxing, cleansing is an essential part of healthy aging. So instead of going through all the food stuff, because food takes forever, that's why we spend so long on it. So most of the time we don't cover toxicity in the seminars because of food being so vital. So we're going to cover food exclusively at the next two things, which many of you have been to before, but we're doing 2 Shop with the Docs. So we're doing a Shop with the Doc where they're going to start passing around the sheets. We do one on Monday the 11th at night, Wednesday the 13th during the day, so if you want to come through the grocery store and actually see where to buy some of this stuff. And then the following week we're going to do a recipe night. So we're going to be here, but you actually get to eat too. So see, but it's easier, so for some reason we always joke, it's easier to get people here when there's a whole free meal. But we're going to do a recipe night and cover all the food things that we don't cover tonight. But the one thing we are going to cover, I think if I surveyed the room and I said, what is organic? I bet I'd get a lot of people who couldn't really define organic very well. They know it's better, but they don't really know why. So Dr. Alex is going to spend about 5 minutes covering what organic is. Yeah.
All right, so everyone, when you hear me on this? Okay. So when you think of organic, you ultimately a lot of times think it's automatically healthy, where organic means, to be labeled organic, it means if it's produce or an ingredient in like a boxed food. It means that first off it was made or raised without pesticides, that it was made without synthetic fertilizers, it was made without genetically modified organisms, or it was made without ionized radiation. So that's basically what it means. It's made with less toxins and it's more natural. It's not synthetically raised. If you're talking about things like meat or dairy, cheese, eggs, when they label something organic, it means that it was made without growth hormone and without the use of antibiotics, as well as like with chickens, it wasn't fed an animal byproduct. So that's what it means when it's organic. However, organic absolutely is a healthier option, except just because it's organic does not mean it's healthy. Like say you have organic cane sugar. Well, sugar is still sugar, so it's still toxic to your body. At least it doesn't have a lot of synthetic chemicals. It's not as toxic for you, but it's still going to have the same effect on your body. If you're only going to change one thing when it comes to switching things to organic, a must change is your meats, where meat it bioaccumulates toxins. So let's say if you're going to eat grain, and grain that was sprayed with pesticides. Well, although you're naturally eating toxic food, if you're eating a cow that was fed tons and tons and tons of pesticide-filled grains, it bioaccumulates more and more toxins in its cells. And you hear the term, you are what you eat. Well, you are what you are eating what you're eating ate prior. So say if you're eating a cow that was force-fed all these synthetic, hormone-raised, pesticide-filled foods, well then you're just putting more and more toxins into your body. So same thing with dairy. First thing you want to change is your meats, if you're only changing one thing. If you can't afford it, just go vegetarian for now. It's better than adding toxic food in your body. However, you can get it fairly reasonably. It is more expensive, however, just eat less. We eat far too much protein than we need. So if you just eat a smaller amount of the healthier stuff, you'll be getting a lot more benefit than eating the toxic food. But then second would be dairy because of the same reason. The high amounts of chemicals, hormones, everything that's found in milk, cheeses. You can't even get at the grocery stores, even Woodman's, Meijer, everyone has raw cheese. You can get raw cheese that was grass-fed, never heated above the body temperature of a cow. So it has none of the antibiotics, the hormones, the pesticides in this, and you're getting the good fats as well. Secondly, if Dr. Jared can change this, if you're first you want to change, like I mentioned, the meats, the dairy. However, second, if you're trying to switch some of your fruits and vegetables over to organic, you want to look first at, and you can look up online as well, every year they come out with the Dirty Dozen, it's called, even though now it's the Dirty Dozen Plus because there's more than 12 toxic foods, and then the Clean 15. So when they do that, if you're eating any of these foods on the left here, these are the ones that are highest in pesticides, so you want to try to buy those organic. And if you look at them, most of them you notice they have thin outer shells, and you actually eat them like an apple or a peach, grapes, spinach, leafy greens, you eat the whole thing. Where the Clean 15 are more things like, say, pineapples or grapefruit, which are thicker, and you don't eat the outside of it, so it doesn't accumulate as much of the toxins. So those would be a little safer if you're not going to eat organic. However, when you do go to the grocery store, and you can look at, there's usually a 4 or 5 number barcode or code on it. If you're looking for organic, it'll start with the number 9, so it'll be 9 and then 4 numbers. So especially these on the left here, if you're trying to switch to organic, you want to buy these organic. And if there's an 8 with 4 numbers, that means it's genetically modified, so you want to completely stay away from that. And then if there's just 4 numbers with no 8 or 9 ahead of that, then it means it's just raised conventionally. It's not genetically modified, however, it also is not raised organically. Those are the basics. However, like you mentioned, Dr. Jared mentioned, we're going to go through a lot more at the recipe night. Make sure to sign up for that, where you get to, like he mentioned, come and have great food for free as well, which seems to bring people over. However, also, we're going to go a lot more in detail, as well as at Shop with the Doc. We'll take you around Woodman's and actually show you where to find these things and go from there. Okay, but that's the gist of organic, and then Dr. Jared will be able to answer any more questions and go through toxicity. Okay?
You said broccoli and Brussels sprouts on either list.
You need a much more extensive list online. Absolutely. Broccoli is going to be organic because what's on top is what you eat, so it catches all the spray. And Brussels sprouts, actually, I believe, if I remember off the top of my head, are more conventional, because if you look at it, it's kind of like cabbage. It's more protected. Most of it's protected, what you eat. If you look at even most of these, with the exception of asparagus, on the conventional one, almost all of them, you eat the inside's protected. You know, even onions have a shell. Mango, papaya, eggplant has a thicker part, and so it's going to be more of it's going to be protected from the pesticide. So pesticides do, he's used the word bioaccumulate, they store in your body. They're considered a toxin. I don't think anybody's surprised by that. What may surprise you is, again, that for many of them, they know that they're not good for you, but they're still able to be used. As much as we give the FDA a hard time, I will say, just this last year, there was a chemical that Dow produced that everybody's heard how hard Roundup can be on your body. It was Roundup plus another one combined. And so it was going to basically just kill everything. You could just kind of spray it near something and everything would die. And Dow spent millions and millions of dollars making it, and the FDA forced them, will not let them use it in the United States. So it went to market, so it passed the other trials, but upon more research. So it's not that everything is let through, so we do have to say there's some good things that happen too, but there's a lot of stuff that's toxic. Here's another thing, think about this. You cannot commercially fish the Great Lakes. Why are the Great Lakes so great to fish in if you've ever gone on a fishing trip? There's so much pollution from when they let factories dump chemicals into the Great Lakes. There's so much that's stored from generation to generation in the fish that they're not safe enough to eat, that they won't let any company catch them and then sell them. All 5 Great Lakes, so everything that we have in the center because of factory production in previous years. They're called PCBs. You might, those store in the fish's fat, and they store in humans' fat, and that's another reason why it's not recommended. You can eat, I think they say it's safe to eat 2 a year. So if you go on a fishing trip, you can eat 2 fish out of the Great Lakes a year without it being too toxic on your body. Crazy. Crazy to think about, but that's because of some of these chemicals. They don't always dissolve. They may last for generation after generation because of what they do. We already talked about what it does, how it gets in your body. So here's the thing. Before you start to detox, the best way your body's always naturally detoxing. It's just how much are you putting in versus how much are you getting out. People get toxic because they can't get out as much as they put in, or they come in contact with. So starting to remove the sources, you're already going to naturally start to detox. The second thing is to cleanse your body by putting the right foods in, by detoxing through a supplement. Another great way to detox is to exercise. So sweating through your skin. If you sauna, steam rooms, those are all great ways to detox. And then putting in those phytonutrients, because you can make more glutathione. Your body kind of just needs the building blocks. And then, again, get rid of them. Activated charcoal is one of the best ways to get rid of toxicity. So have you ever heard of activated charcoal before? No. Activated charcoal, it's carbon that's been activated to bind to chemicals. So if you took a whole bottle of aspirin and you went in the ambulance to the hospital, you'd drink a whole glass of activated charcoal in your stomach because it would bind all the chemicals. Well, that's what the cell and body detox does. So for those people that have debated doing a detox, the cell detox has all those building blocks to make more glutathione for your liver, along with some herbs that stimulate what's called a cellular dump. That's why it's called cell detox. So the fat cells, the body cells that are storing toxicity, causes it to dump back out into your system to give your body another chance to detox it. And while it's going through your blood, that's why you take the activated charcoal or the body detox. The body detox goes through your digestive system, and when your blood comes into your digestive system to help you digest your food every day, the toxins in your blood bind to the activated charcoal, which is how you eliminate the toxins through your bowels. It's a safe, much more natural way to do it. So if you feel like you really do need to detox, detoxing is not something like the multivitamin where you should really be taking a multivitamin every day for the next 50 years. Detoxing is something that we recommend you do for 2 to 3 months total, or 2 to 3 boxes, and then either do like 1 to 2 boxes a year, or what I prefer to do, I like maintenance, just like I like a maintenance adjustment, I like a maintenance detox. I take detox once a week on Sundays. So that box, instead of lasting a month, it lasts 7 months. So it'll last a much longer period of time. So that's something to consider if you feel like you need to detox. Now, talking down to the cellular level, whenever I go and do lunch and learns at churches or at businesses or at moms groups or wherever, the most common one we do, we call it the 4 basic needs of the cell. Because really, if you look at your health, it goes all the way down to the cellular level. So you need nutrition, which we get, oxygen, pumping oxygen in, which is done through breathing exercise, the ability to detox. So as you digest, just like you go to the bathroom a couple times a day, the cells need to be able to dump toxicity. That's what's healthy. And then lastly, a nerve supply to control it and make it all actually work properly. 4 basic needs of the cell. Now, what happens over time is they call it cell hardening. So toxicity, your body's attempt to keep you healthier, they'll actually, the cells, the pathways for nutrients to come in, the cell will actually get hard. It starts to get kind of deformed looking. That's also, if you came to the Cancer Killers workshop, if you remember, as your body turns from a healthy cell to a cancer cell, the receptors, what it allows in and out changes. So a cancer cell tries to not allow oxygen in, and it pulls more sugar in, which makes the environment more acidic or more toxic, which lets cancer cells grow. Your body, when it's healthy, when that cell membrane is letting the right things in, it's going to have the right forms of, it's going to let more oxygen in, it's going to get more of the toxicity out, it's going to have things that pass or allow the right nutrients in. For those people that are diabetic, you know, the only time, the way that insulin works is it binds to a receptor, it opens up a tunnel to let sugar in. Also, exercising allows your body to do that. So it's the only other time when you exercise intensely is the only time that insulin is not required to get sugar out of your blood and into your cells. It naturally occurs. Which is why if you've ever, your doctor, for those that are diabetic or pre-diabetic, it's why they push exercise so hard. They say you need to exercise is because it helps you get your insulin more balanced. So an unhealthy cell needs those things. So this is what I jumped to. Remember when we practiced doing that deep breathing? Turning over the air in your lungs is also good for your health. It gets the bad stuff out, it gets the good stuff in. It also lowers your stress hormones, and it lowers them for free. No drugs, no supplements, no nothing. Taking these long, deep breaths slows your body's production or release of stress hormones. You've heard of the fight-or-flight nerve system. If a Rottweiler came into this room and was barking and growling, everybody would jump up, freeze, pick their chair up, whatever they would do. But you go into what's called your fight-or-flight response of your nerve system. When you're sitting there, you're resting, you should be taking slower, deeper breaths. Your body should be relaxing. It's also how you digest your food. So for people that eat on the run, it's harder for them to digest because they're supposed to be in the rest and digest state, and if they're in the fight or flight mode, they take blood out of their abdomen and they put it into their other areas, and that's why it takes longer to digest food. So taking these slow breaths is a good way to relax. We already covered exercise. Exercise, especially intense exercise, detoxes your body, pumps more oxygen in, helps with insulin, helps actually your body or your liver make more glutathione. It raises your body temperature. So I think hopefully in this room, if I said, is a fever good or bad? Everybody says, good, right? Why is a fever good? Right? It kills whatever it kills the virus or bacteria. If you've ever heard somebody say sweat it out, exercising to sweat it out raises your body temperature naturally, so it'll help your body to kill whatever it is. Vaccine 3 is incredibly effective. It says 10 to 15% off today. I think most of you know this, but for those that are new here, every time we have one of these talks, every supplement, everything that we have is at least 10% off. If you get 3 or more, it's 15% off. So it's a way to not only get information, but to save money on the stuff that you want. Neurologically, again, we've covered this a little bit already. Your nerve system controls your immune system. It controls your liver. It controls your kidneys. It allows your body to naturally detox. I get a kick out of 1 or 2 things when somebody gets adjusted for the first time. They'll come back and they'll say, "How come I peed so much?" Like they'll go and I know that's kind of weird, but here's the thing: sometimes as soon as somebody gets adjusted, they start to detox. And so, how are they going to detox? They start to get rid of what's called extracellular fluid. It's their body storing toxicity in there, and so they'll just start to let it go because they're working better. So they'll say that. And the other one, why was I nauseous? Again, because as your body's dumping toxicity, it's going through your whole system and can actually create nausea the first couple times somebody gets adjusted. Not because it's a bad adjustment, but because your body is releasing all these toxins. Glutathione we've covered pretty extensively. So again, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, you can see that list: garlic, onions, kale, collard greens, watercress, cauliflower. All these things are great. But basically, vegetables. Vegetables increase glutathione. Vegetables have what are called. The interesting thing, if you want to get glutathione in your body, your liver has to make it, or you have to do it by IV. They have to because it has when it goes into your stomach, your body breaks it down into all its components. So to make glutathione, you have to get the components which are in vegetables and detox. Another thing, for people that are on the go a lot, I really strongly recommend having greens, keeping greens in your car, keeping greens somewhere, because the thing about greens is if you're not getting 5 to 6 servings of vegetables a day, you really are missing a lot of what you need. And so that's another way to get it, because you can get a couple of servings in these greens. You're not getting the fiber, but you are getting, it's dehydrated, raw dehydrated juice. So you're getting a lot of the phytonutrients, you're getting a lot of the glutathione precursors. It's anti-inflammatory, and you can shake it in a water bottle. So you can take, if you have greens with you, you can shake it in a water bottle. So that's something. Lemon water, putting lemon in your water is another good thing for detoxing. I will say there's been a few things that have shown you probably want to squeeze the lemon in your water. You don't want to put the lemon in your water. just because of how long they've been stored, depending on where you're at. If you're at home, of course, you can put the lemon in your water. But if you're at a restaurant, you probably don't want to. But adding lemon or ordering lemon water is another easy way to help your body detox. Again, most restaurants already have that. So now talking about dieting versus cleansing, I don't see this as much, but it used to drive me nuts seeing Nutrisystems, like with all those NFL players. Dan Marino lost whatever. Dan Marino didn't lose whatever still. These guys that have lost all this weight, because here's what happens when you diet. These little red balls are supposed to represent toxicity. So if you go on a 1,200 calorie diet for long, your body has to lose some weight. But what happens is you do dump toxicity, and so it absorbs into other parts. And so you still have just as much toxicity, or you may have more, because let's say you get the Nutrisystems or the Weight Watchers meals. Think about what happens. It's all plastic, it's all prepared, it's all preservative filled, so what are you putting in your body? But you're eating low calorie, so you might lose weight for a while. But when you stop doing that, not only did the low calorie throw off your metabolism, so when you go back to eating the same food, your metabolism isn't as good, but also you have the same amount of toxicity, so what's your body naturally going to try and do? Add body fat. It's going to naturally try. So or if you cleanse, for instance, if you eat the advanced plan, if you detox, if you do a juice fast, if you do something like this, or if you intermittent fast, all these things, they actually help you detox. So when you lose weight or when you cleanse, it's easier to maintain. I thought the words were a little small. I don't know how many people can read it. So that's the gist of it. Now here's another thing for health, for detox: sleep. So many people not only don't get enough sleep, but don't realize. I thought, I got talked into this. This is day 5 with this Fitbit thing. But if anybody's had a Fitbit before, it tests your steps, which I don't care that much about personally, but it tests your sleep. It actually monitors how much you sleep. So there's a few things about sleep. It's not how many hours you sleep, it's how much REM sleep you get. The deep sleep, where you're not restless, where your body goes into what's called the healing stage of sleep. So you have stage 1, which is light sleep, stage 2 deeper, stage 3. Stage 4 is deeper. Stage 4 is when you can remember your dreams. Quick thing about stage 4, most sleeping pills, that's where you get stuck at. So sleeping pills, anti-anxiety. So that's one of the things, you have to sleep all this time, but you don't get REM, or you don't get as much REM. Also, if you've ever had a long weekend and you stay up later, you don't get as much REM as if you go to sleep before 11 o'clock at night. For athletes, without going too much, the most growth hormone, HGH, is released between 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. So going to sleep on time is better that's also good for all of us for metabolism. But REM sleep is where your brain and your body actually repair. And so if you're restless, if you continually get woken up out of that, if you're coming in and out, you might sleep 8 hours, but you might not feel rested. It also affects your hormone. So here's 5 things that you should consider as you're trying to get good quality sleep. Besides that, if you're not sleeping well, it may be right here, right? Atlas adjustment, upper part of your neck is what actually tells your body to be in REM sleep. But excluding the neurological effect, which I think everybody here should know about, digestively, if you're still digesting your food, that makes it harder to go into REM sleep, so your body has to spend time in those first couple hours you're falling asleep to finish digesting before it can get as deep of a sleep or get as much rest. So if you're eating later at night, it can be harder on your sleep cycle, or you may need more. The second thing, alcohol. If alcohol is still in your bloodstream, it's harder to get REM sleep. So it's recommended, for food, it's recommended that you 3 hours, you stop eating 3 hours before you go to bed. That's the recommendation. It's also good for intermittent fasting, which has been shown to be helpful for weight loss, metabolism, energy, detox, all that. So having some gaps between your total amount of time. Alcohol, it's an hour to an hour and a half, they say, at least to get your body to get some of that out. And typically, it takes about an hour for your body to detox one drink. So just for people because there are some people that'll say, well, I'm getting no sleep, and to fall asleep because I'm stressed, I have 2 drinks. Well, they to fall asleep, but then they're actually not getting really good sleep. Caffeine, the more caffeine in your body at the time you go to sleep, the harder it is for your REM cycle. The other thing that it's hard on is the more caffeine that's in your bloodstream, the harder it is for your blood sugars. So again, for people that are diabetic, they say I can drink coffee all day and go to sleep. Well, you probably can, but your caffeine keeps your blood sugar high, so if your blood sugar is artificially raised all the time, how's your body able to repair? what's it going to do for insulin sensitivity? Think about those things. So about 1 to 2 cups of coffee or that amount of caffeine a day. Above that, it can stay in your system or it's harder on you. Now, coffee has some good benefits. It has soluble fiber that's good for the bacteria in your digestive tract. It has some good benefits. But again, when you talk about organic, coffee is probably the most pesticide. Coffee and peanuts are 2 of the more pesticide-covered things because they dry it and then they roast it later. So it's sprayed with a chemical unless you buy organic coffee. So caffeine is one of those things where you want to keep caffeine to be more morning if you're going to drink it, or more morning or early day. The later in the day you drink it, the harder it is on your sleep cycle. Light and sound, these are the 2 things that I think people realize the least. Light, especially light flashes, wake your body up out of deep sleep, and blue light, like light from a cell phone, light from a security system, light if you have a blue alarm clock, that stimulates your eyes. Even with your eyes closed, it stimulates the room, so it makes it harder for your body to get the deepest levels of sleep. It's why actually alarm clocks are red light, because it's supposed to be much easier on you. Also, the amount of electronics right by your head affects it, so you want to try not to have as many electrical things, just like you don't want to stand and look at the microwave. You want to have as few electrical things close to your head, or within, I believe it's 4 feet of your head, is possible for best quality sleep. So the amount blacking out your room or trying to minimize the deep, the light flashes that your body gets exposed to is really a big deal. And then sound, same thing. So if you have something that thumps in the middle of the night, or if you have something that consistently wakes you up out of that sleep, that technically it doesn't count as part of your sleep if you're restless because you're not getting the deep sleep. So whether you need 6, 7, 5, 8 hours, whatever you need, you might, if you have a bunch of these things, if you're doing a bunch of these things on this list, you may need 10 hours to get your 7. Versus if you change a bunch of these things, you may need 7 hours to get your 7 or 7.5 or whatever it is. Every person is different based on stress, hormone levels, different things. But those are 5 things to consider because, of course, if you wake up high stress, if you wake up, if you're not getting enough sleep, sleep's when your body heals, sleep's when your body repairs. So if you're not getting enough, you can cumulatively be having toxicity affected. Last slide. So as we finish here, this is not necessary. And we talk about habits. There's all different things to say about habits, but something that they put together that I thought was pretty good. They called it the 21-day spring reset. So something to consider is to either kind of like people give stuff up for Lent. Consider doing 1, 2, 5, all these things for 21 days is like a good way to not just like a New Year's resolution, but actually do something going into this warm weather to make some changes. So if you feel like you struggle with negative self-talk, write down on your note sheet, pull your iPhone out right now or your smartphone and type in, Tony Robbins affirmations online, or how to do an affirmation online if you don't want to hear Tony Robbins or whatever. But start to work on that self-talk. Almost everybody in this room already gets adjusted regularly, which is incredibly smart for your health. Think about how much water do you get in your body. Again, I had 3 people today alone come in with dizzy, come in because they were dizzy, which is more affected by the seasonal allergens, sinus infections with the seasons changing. But one thing that can happen is you get dehydrated, the fluid in your head gets a little bit thicker, so it's easier to get dizzy because there's only so much. So, and the interesting thing was all 3 people I asked, could you be dehydrated? All 3 people said, well, I definitely don't drink enough water. It's like it's this chronic thing, and again, it's easy to do, but you just gotta put yourself around the water all the time. Detox. Get some of those phytonutrients by juicing, max greens, getting broccoli, kale, Brussels sprouts, minimizing sugar or grains. Go on the advanced plan for a couple weeks again. Do something like that. Exercise, deep breathing, sleep, and again, finishing with water. Water, the last thing I'll say about water, not all water is the same, right? Tap water has fluoride in it. We covered fluoride in the beginning. So if you drink city water, at the minimum you should be running it through a carbon filter. It needs to at least go through a carbon filter. Also, tap water, because of how many drugs Americans consume, you can test water and find multiple drugs in every city's tap water in America. So you're actually consuming micro doses of drugs. If you run it through a carbon filter, it gets out all those chemicals, that toxic. Over 98% for a basic Brita filter. The better you get, the more you get out of it. For residential, the 2 best waters are either spring water, which is what we have in the office, or reverse osmosis. Now reverse osmosis takes everything out, so that's again another reason why it's so important to have a multivitamin, healthy lifestyle, that part of it. But reverse osmosis or spring water are the two types of water that are going to be best. A bare minimum is to run it through a carbon filter on a regular basis, anything that you cook with or drink. So that's it. That's it. We started on time. We ended in less than an hour and 15.